How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about the double Game Week 27 team selection, as well as taking a look at how our squad got on in double Game Week 26. A lot of transfer considerations this week, especially with KDB returning to the side in double Game Week 26. Do we bring him in? Do we leave him out? And do we even look at him as a captaincy consideration? Find out that in this team selection. So that's something you're interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So before we get on to the Game Week 26 review, I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to the preview because I think it went under the eyes of a lot of viewers due to the excitement and craziness of those last fixtures last night in terms of double Game Week 26. So go check out the preview, and the reason why I'm shouting it out is in the previews I go into a lot more depth and analysis, and I sometimes in the team selections don't give the background of my decisions. So the preview is where the bread and the butter of my FPL decisions do happen, so I'll leave a link down in the description below. If you guys didn't check it out, I always do appreciate the support. But let's get on and look at the review. So going over a quick review of double Game Week 26, and it was yet another green arrow. I think this is about 19 green arrows in a row, so just kind of hoping that we can continue this trend. Now if I didn't get a green arrow when I did use a chip such as the triple captain, I would be highly disappointed, but I still was highly disappointed even with that green arrow, just because of how much that green arrow was. We could have had an absolutely massive game week if our differential triple captain paid off, but it didn't. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So 92 points with no hits taken. The transfers this week, we used our 2 free transfers. We managed to bring in Lucas Digne for Lowton, and to afford that move we had to downgrade Fabianski to Forster. So that Fabianski to Forster move looks like an absolute time machine move, because Fabianski now is injured and Forster managed to start for Southampton. So we talked about that rumor of him potentially starting for Southampton due to McCarthy's poor form, and that's exactly what happened. So I was really happy with that move. Now whether we play him next game week is yet to be seen, but as you can see, that move also worked out for Lowton to Lucas Digne, who also performed quite well. So right now the overall rank is just about that 36k mark. I would have liked it to be a little bit higher because that top 10k is looking mighty far for us right now. I think it's about 36 points that we are currently off that top 10k, so we're gonna have to make some maverick moves, some massive differential calls there to hopefully finish in the top 10k for the 3rd consecutive season. So starting off in goal, we have Johnston with 12 points. Now the first game week of the season for Johnston against Brighton, I honestly don't know how he kept a clean sheet. I think Brighton had a goal disallowed, which was super controversial. Then he managed to have 2 penalty misses against him, so he could have actually had a penalty save there, but I'm not going to be greedy at all with Johnston. 12 points is really respectable, and that kind of got me hyped for this double Game Week 26, but unfortunately it was all downhill from there. Not super downhill in terms of the other defenders. We have Diaz here with 12 points, managed to start both fixtures, but Cancelo was benched for the first one and only featured in the second one. And what happens? The second fixture, Man City, of course, don't keep a clean sheet, conceded a goal for a free kick for Wolves, where the defending was a little bit questionable, and that unfortunately took that double clean sheet haul from Man City away. But 12 points, 2 points. I mean, Cancelo was probably a little bit of a disappointment, but Diaz definitely helped return. And then we also have Lucas Digne here with 14 points. So as I mentioned, that transfer from Matt Lowton paid off massively. I probably could have even looked at him as a differential captain. I mean, if I was going for DCL, I could have also looked at Lucas Digne, but I just didn't trust that Everton defense that much. And there was some points in both those fixtures where I thought that Everton could have lost their clean sheet, but luckily he managed to hold on for both those clean sheets, which resulted in 14 points. The midfield was a little bit hit or miss here. We had Heung-min Son with a massive 14 points as well. In the first game week, he managed to get 2 assists, but then in the second one, nothing much happened. Was a little bit unfortunate there with that result last night. Spurs winning 1-0 from a Gareth Bale goal. That's what we thought, but then it was an own goal. So then obviously Son's assist got degraded, and then also Bale's goal got demoted to just an assist. So I'll take 14 points there, but definitely looks as the better triple captain if I would have opted for him. But I was just happy that Son managed to outscore Kane, because obviously we didn't own Kane. The rest of the midfield, a little bit of a hit or miss here. We have Salah with 5 points, Gundogan with 6 points. On a single game week, that might look quite respectable, but because it was a double game week, and those are basically just clean sheet and appearance points, especially also with Fernandes, forgot to include Fernandes in there. So the trio of Gundogan, Salah and Fernandes doing absolutely nothing in double Game Week 26, and that's probably where most FPL managers were quite frustrated. So a lot of money in that midfield not returning points, whereas we did have some more budget enablers that were actually outperforming them. So they have to come into the consideration for potential potential transfers out, but we're talking about that a little bit later on. In the forward line, Bamford didn't do anything with his only single game week fixture. Unfortunately, I had to play a single game week player this week, but Bamford against Aston Villa, I was hoping for a little bit more from Leeds because of just how bad that Aston Villa defense has been, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Ollie Watkins managing to get, I think it was an assist and then some appearance points, but without Jack Grealish, seems to be struggling a little bit, but that is expected because Jack Grealish just offers so much creativity and the chances created can't be replaced by another substitute. Then finally, our triple captain, which was the disappointment of the game week. Calvert-Lewin with 4 points, tripled to 12 points. One of my first triple captaincy blanks that I've had experienced in FPL. I don't really know what happened with DCL. I watched both Everton games and they were really lackluster. I thought in that midfield department, they definitely weren't creating the chances they needed. But then also Calvert-Lewin had a couple of chances, especially last night in that game against West Brom. He missed a crucial one-on-one. And when I saw him miss that one, I definitely thought that this was going to be an upcoming blank, which unfortunately was the case. So in terms of the chip strategy this season, the bench boost returned about 6 or 8 points, and then Calvert-Lewin's captaincy returned 12 points. That's highly disappointing. So the chip strategy this season has definitely not paid off, and I'm really worried that that's going to come back to bite us in that final top 10k push. On the bench, Forster with the 2 points, Rafinha with the 2 points, then we also have Dallas with 2 and Kufal with 1. So the benching decisions looked like they were accurate, and I definitely am happy and not regretting my bench options. And this definitely wasn't a bench boost game week, even though it returned the similar points to when I did bench boost. But let's get on and look at some transfer considerations. So the two transfers considerations that I am looking at currently, I do only have one free transfer. So the first option would be a hit. It's going to be Fernandes and Cancelo to Kevin De Bruyne and Target. So the reason why I've got Target in here is that I'm hoping that we get some double game week 28 news, because if you do recall, and we also spoke about it in the preview, Aston Villa and Everton are rumored to have a double game week 28, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So if we do get news about that confirmation, I definitely will be looking at this move. Fernandes, I wanted to also mention, could easily become Salah. Fernandes, Salah, those are interchangeable. Both cost around the same amount. Salah is more expensive, but I could swap out either of those. The one thing about Kevin De Bruyne that's a little bit annoying though, is if I do look to bring him in, I have to sacrifice one of my other Man City options. It's going to be Diaz or Cancelo. I've included Cancelo here, and the reason why I've included Cancelo here is although I think he'll start both games in double game week 27, I do think he's more of a rotation risk for the long term, so Diaz is more of an assured option. But either of those two are interchangeable, could swap out either of them. Then the next option I could do is Fernandes to someone like Gareth Bale. Why this transfer looked quite juicy is that most people own Harry Kane, and if I don't own Harry Kane, I want a little bit of coverage there with the differential that is Gareth Bale. The only thing with Gareth Bale is that I'm worried about his minutes being managed, as he has come back into a little bit of form, but I don't think his match fitness is at the optimum level. And then with the Europa League and the other cup competitions, I could see some rotation there for Gareth, but I still think that he could be a great option that we do go for. But then the more realistic option that I haven't included here, as it's really boring, is that I'm going to be not using a transfer at all. I'm simply going to be banking the transfer unless we do get news of a potential double game week 28. Why I'm saying this is that if I do bring Kevin De Bruyne in, I could be a little bit worried about some rotation there with the Champions League fixtures on the horizon, and the fact that he started both games in double game week 26. Maybe won't start both games in double game week 27. Definitely will start against United, I believe. But then the Southampton game is where you really want to have a Man City option, and I'm just scared that he might be benched for that one. So in terms of the transfers, the most realistic option this week is probably to bank it and then just reassess the situation next game week when we have a little bit more food for thought, and hopefully BRUNO and Salah manage to bang in double game week 27, and then we can kind of be confident on keeping them. So this is the team with no transfers made, and as I mentioned, this is the most realistic option that I do believe. Starting off in goal, we have a little bit of a dilemma here. We've got Forster with a double game week, but then we also have Johnston against Newcastle. Out of these two teams, I think that maybe Johnston has a more guaranteed clean sheet. I know that Forster does have Sheffield United, but with the way Southampton have been playing, I'm pretty sure Sheffield United could get something out of that. And then we also have that Man City game, and I can honestly see Forster conceding negative points against Man City, just because I think that's going to be quite a comfortable game for them. So whether to start Forster or Johnston is up in the air, but I think just because of the fact that I bought Forster last week with the option of him potentially playing, and now that that hope has come true, I think that I have to go with Forster in that defensive line. The rest of the defense, I've gone for Diaz and Cancelo. Cancelo basically my vice captain right now, because I think those Man City options, you basically have to captain them / vice captain them, because they're just so strong in terms of form, and the ceiling is definitely the highest out of any other team because of that double game week. So Diaz and Cancelo, I've got both of them in the lineup they're not going anywhere so far unless I do choose to bring in Kevin De Bruyne. Then we have Dallas and Soufal. And this is kind of the dilemma I've been in because I don't know if I want to play both sides of the defense in one fixture with Dallas and Soufal, with the fact that I own Rafinha and Bamford as well. So I could play the odds here and maybe hope that if Leeds don't score, maybe Soufal manages to get an attacking return and a clean sheet. But I also think that I could play the odds of benching Soufal, and that's why I was potentially looking at taking Fernandes out, because Fernandes is currently on my bench, as you can see there. So I think if I do bring in an option, he definitely will start instead of Soufal, and I'll just bank on Leeds hopefully having a good fixture. We then have Son, Gundogan and Salah filling in the rest of the midfield there. Son has a good fixture against Crystal Palace, although Crystal Palace recently have seen a resurgence defensively and they look quite tight at the back. But it is Spurs playing with a new revitalized attack. I know against Fulham maybe didn't look that good, but I definitely think the inclusion of Dele Alli and Gareth Bale has rejuvenated that attack, and they could be quite scary and get a high scoring game. So Son, I'm relatively happy with keeping him. A little bit scared of not owning Harry Kane because I think he could do some damage as well. So Gundogan currently the captain, as he is the only Man City attacker that I do own. We spoke about it in the preview. My favorite options are basically any Man City attacker that you do have. The more expensive the better in this case, because I think De Bruyne is the best, then Sterling, and then Gundogan fits in there quite nicely. So he'll be my captain this week, relatively confirmed, comfortable, unless I do bring in KDB. Then we have Salah against Fulham. Now Salah was taken off about that 60-minute mark, so I am kind of hoping that this has sparked a fire in Mo Salah, and against Fulham he puts on an absolute show there and fulfills the faith that we have had with keeping him for so long. Rafinha already spoken about along with Bamford. I think against West Ham it's going to be a tough fixture, as West Ham has also seen a recent resurgence in that defense and are looking quite good, and Leeds are really hit or miss, which annoys me. Whenever we kind of count on Leeds, they don't usually perform, and with 3 Leeds players in my starting 11, I definitely am relying on them. Then finally we have Ollie Watkins against Wolves. Now Wolves this season haven't been that great, but Aston Villa without Jack Grealish have also not been that great, and there has been news from the press conference that Jack Grealish is probably not going to be playing against Wolves. I think it's basically confirmed that he will miss out on the weekend, which is highly disappointing for me as an Ollie Watkins owner, and if you do still own Jack Grealish. So just keep that in mind if you still do own the English midfielder. On the bench, really spoken about Fernandes here against Man City. The reason why he's on my bench is that I think against the bigger opposition, United don't usually pitch up. They seem to be quite comfortable with the draw, and I think Bruno Fernandes in general has kind of got the reputation this season of being really good against the weaker opposition, but then against the bigger opposition, he kind of disappears a little bit. So this could come back to bite me. I'm pretty sure if you're a United fan, you're probably screaming at me to get Fernandes on the field, but I kind of feel like the only thing with Fernandes is that if he gets a pen, it's basically a confirmed goal, so you're hoping for that pen, and with the pens this season kind of slowing down towards the end, I don't think there's going to be that many in that fixture. Then finally, Lucas Digne, and we also have Calvert-Lewin on the bench there. I'm perfectly comfortable benching these two options. Lucas Digne maybe not, has a little bit of a spot in my heart right now after that 14 points in double game week 26, but Calvert-Lewin, he definitely can be there third on the bench. I'm really angry and disappointed at him after that triple captaincy blank, but hopefully he can repay it off if they do get a double game week 28. So this is the current team that I have looked at. I will update you guys obviously with the final team selection. And why I wanted to say I'm going to update you with the final team selection is the deadline with Dayvy live stream this weekend is not going to be going ahead. Unfortunately, I can't do a live stream tomorrow before the deadline, so I either will keep the squad as usual. So if you don't hear anything from me on Twitter, you can basically assume that the lineup that I have posted in the previous talking point is confirmed. And if I do make some transfers, I will obviously confirm you guys on my Twitter page at Dayvy FPL for the final team selection. So this is basically a wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. As I always say, I'll be signing off. This has been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.